Alright, so today I want to show you my Lemonblast. I actually have quite a few Lemonblasts here in my collection. The Lemonblast is a combination of the Pastel and the Pinstripe. And I actually have some juveniles that I just hatched out this year. I have some yearlings and I have a whole bunch of adult females, and they can be pretty variable from one to another. I thought I'd just kind of show you all the different variations and kind of how they change. They don't really change a whole lot from when they're small to when they're adults. And I have a whole bunch of them, quite a few varieties of different Lemonblasts. Some of them have really strong stripes down the top, and some of them kind of have more of a shattered pattern. Some of them are really orange on the sides too, which is kind of interesting. So let's jump over and I want to start pulling out my Lemonblast and let's check them out. Alright, so take a look at this little guy. This one just hatched out and ate its very first 2 meals. Doing pretty good. It has a good start. Good start on life. Look at how shattered the pattern is on this one. I'd say this is really unusual for a Lemonblast to have such a shattered pattern. It's kind of interesting. Sometimes they'll have a really strong stripe down the top. And as a matter of fact, this one almost looks kind of enchy-like, kind of reduced. Sometimes with the enchy, they'll have like little blobs along the back. And sometimes it's kind of interesting. It seems like I have kind of like a pseudo enchy, a really low expression enchy kind of floating around in my collection. I don't think this one is enchy though, because usually it reduces even the lines on the sides to more of little spots coming right down the snake. But I'd say as far as kind of a shattered Lemonblast, this is probably the most shattered pattern that I've ever seen on any Lemonblast. That is a really stunning snake. And a lot of times it kind of loses the pinstripe gold. Sometimes with the pinstripes, they can be super gold, and then when you mix in the pastel, it kind of washes out the gold into this kind of a yellowish gold color. And when it comes to the Lemonblast, usually it's really visually dominant. So you work this into other combinations, and usually the combination of the pastel and the pinstripe will really overwhelm a lot of your other combinations, to where you can definitely see a strong influence from the color and the pattern from the Lemonblast. This one has really interesting sides coming right down the sides. Almost looks like tiger stripes and kind of interesting little patterns, and then like little specks and little kind of interesting patterns all over the snake. Probably one of my most interesting. As a matter of fact, I haven't really pulled this guy out and looked at him in detail since it hatched. It's not really that old, just a couple weeks old. Alright, so take a look at that guy. That is pretty much what your typical Lemonblast looks like. This is your Pastel Pinstripe. This is another one from that same clutch. Ate 2 meals, doing really good. Take a look at that beauty. That is a pretty awesome snake right there. I haven't figured out the males and the females on this yet. I kind of wait until they've had maybe about 6 meals, and then I'll probe them with the probe to figure it out 100%. Some people pop the hemipines. What they do is they just kind of roll the hemipines and just pop them out right there. You can also do that. If you actually take a look at the sides on this one's not as busy as the other one. I'd say this is pretty much your more typical Lemonblast, where it's not really completely shattered on the sides. You can definitely tell in this one it kind of has, you know, like a shattered line right down the back. Sometimes that line can be really super strong right down the back. You can definitely tell, like right up on the head, it has a really strong line. Pretty awesome little hatchling. And these guys, I haven't really looked at these guys at all. They're looking really good. And another thing, if you actually are hatching ball pythons, one thing you really want to do to make sure before you sell your hatchlings is to stretch them out and make sure there's no kinks in the spine. I've actually seen some people selling snakes at like a reptile show, and they get to the show and they're selling snakes, and then they realize kind of at the last moment that they have a kink in their snake and they didn't even realize it. And a lot of times if you have a kink, a lot of people will sell them as pet only and really reduce the pricing on some of your kink snakes. You definitely, I'd say you probably don't want to breed a kink snake, because you know it can actually have some health effects on the snake. But this is a really amazing, it's really super bright, pretty awesome looking little Lemonblast. Alright, so take a look at this one. This is a Yearling Lemonblast. Pretty awesome. This is actually a Pastel Pinstripe. I think this one also has enchy in it, because you can definitely see kind of a reduction in pattern. But other than that, pretty much your typical Lemonblast look to it. This one's actually sold. Some guy's making payments on it. And I was actually holding it through the pandemic. And some people actually canceled. Some people, you know, finally paid off their snake and I shipped them. And this is the only one left from the beginning of the pandemic that the guy's still making payments on, which is no problem because I still have plenty of rack space. But this guy's kind of interesting because you can definitely see in the side it has a lot more orange in the belly pattern, which I'm not sure if that's from the Enchi influence, kind of bringing out some of the orange, or sometimes with these pastel pinstripes, sometimes you can get a really bright line of pastel that really brings out more of the yellow than normal. Some of them are a little bit more browned out, and some of them are really super bright, especially on the sides. It's kind of interesting. And this guy is a male pastel pinstripe, 100% het desert ghost, so you could actually produce some really awesome desert ghost combos. And this guy is definitely ready to breed. Look at how big he is. He is a really big male, pretty awesome Lemonblast. So here's another one. Take a look at this one. This is a big old Lemonblast Scaleless head female. And this one has a really reduced pattern too. Almost looks like it has Enchi. I'm not sure if the pattern reduction is actually from the Scaleless head, but other than just a few scales missing from the top of the head, looks pretty much like a regular Lemonblast. And this girl, she's 2 years old. So this is like kind of the next step up from that last one, but still I'd say maybe not big enough to breed yet. Getting pretty close. You know, so I've actually been kind of pushing some of my females and breeding them after the second year, and the problem is they go off of food and then they end up don't laying eggs, and then they kind of stay small, and it gets kind of frustrating. So I think I'm going to do on this girl is I'm not going to breed her this year. I'm going to give her one more year, and then I'm going to try to get some more weight on her, get her up to maybe like 1,800, maybe 2,000 grams before I breed her for the first time. But it's kind of interesting on this one how the pattern is really reduced, and it's kind of almost like pixelated up in the kind of the belly area of the snake, and it has a really, I'd say it's a lot more yellower than a lot of your other Lemonblasts. There's a really interesting combination. And this one, look at the stripe right down the back. It's kind of an interesting, almost like an open stripe, and you never know exactly what the Scaleless head does to, you know, some of your combinations, but it almost seems like it really affects the striping and the patterns and everything. It's kind of an interesting appearance on this Lemonblast. Alright, so here is another 2-year-old female Scaleless head Lemonblast. I'm thinking it's the Scaleless head, you know, kind of comparing these girls side by side. These are clutch baits from the same clutch. As a matter of fact, when I hatched these out a couple years ago, they were selling on Morphmarket for like $6,000. It was pretty crazy. And it's always a, you know, kind of a gamble. Should I sell them and make the money, or should I keep them and potentially make even more money breeding them? So I could potentially make some completely scaleless ball pythons, and that's kind of the end goal. And I should be able to make more than, you know, the original purchase price, or the original asking price for, you know, before the price actually came down. There's a lot cheaper now. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure you could even get an adult female Scaleless head. A lot of times the adult females, a lot of people don't part with them because, you know, it takes a long time to grow up, and they're the ones that really make the money. Sometimes you can actually get a lot of the males versus the females, but this one's kind of interesting. You can see the same kind of a reduced pattern, and then that open line right on the back, which I think is the influence of the Scaleless head. Alright, so take a look at this one. This is another Lemonblast female, and this one, she's been on live rats only and been really picky this year. She's not really into a very good body condition for breeding. I think I'm going to give her second year off. Sometimes these ball pythons can be kind of stubborn when it comes to eating. And this one's kind of interesting because she's got a really bright yellow side and really almost like a pixelated pattern right on the side of the snake. Almost looks kind of like that you'd see in the spider, kind of, you know, like a high white with a little pixelation. Almost looks like some calico or something, although that is pretty typical of a lot of your Lemonblasts. It's kind of an interesting appearance. And on this one, you don't really see the really strong stripe down the back. It's kind of another open stripe and almost kind of reduced pattern as far as the pattern on the side. Pretty interesting. Alright, so here's another one of my Lemonblasts. Take a look at this girl. She is one of my darker Lemonblasts, and she's actually going into a deep shed right now, so she's typically even darker than this. Pretty amazing. And if you actually look at the pattern, it's pretty much your typical Lemonblast color and pattern, except for the sides. You can see the sides are really kind of a lower white, and they're not quite as bright as the other one. And most of the Lemonblasts, they're pretty clear on the belly, if you can actually take a look at the belly. Not much pattern pattern at all on the belly of a Lemonblast. And this girl is getting a little, she's a little groggy because I think she's starting to go into a shed. Pretty awesome pastel pinstripe. All right, I'm saving my biggest and my brightest for last. Take a look at this beauty. I'd say out of all my Lemonblasts, if I was to keep one, it'd probably be this girl. Look at how big and beautiful she is. She's definitely a lot brighter, almost like a greenish color, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if it'll come out on the camera. Of course, I can color grade to make her look pretty much whatever color I want after I kind of, you know, edit in the Adobe Photoshop. But she kind of has this weird kind of a green color, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of like a yellowish green. I was wondering if there's something else in there. I've actually bred her quite a few times, and she's always been a really good eater, and she's laid eggs quite a few times. I haven't really seen anything else kind of pop out of this girl. And it's pretty amazing how variable the Lemonblast can be, all the way from a really bright color to a dark color to sometimes like a greenish color. And you can make some really awesome combinations with the pastel and the pinstripe. Look at how big she is. She is really super big. She's back on food, and I'm hoping she'll actually lay some eggs this year. I'm actually going to breed her. I'm trying to kind of go through trying to figure out what I'm going to breed to all these girls. And we're coming up on the breeding season here in about 6 weeks, so pretty soon we'll have to start pairing up the snakes. I kind of have like a tentative list of what I want to breed. I don't want to stretch my males too thin, and I don't want to use my males that are too young. This girl has always been a little skittish and quite a bit head shy for some reason, but she seems like she's getting a little bit better in her old age the more I kind of handle her. But she is a really beautiful Lemonblast. All right, so there you have it. Those are my Lemonblast ball pythons. I have quite a few, and it's pretty amazing. You can actually see quite a bit of difference from the dark ones to the bright ones. Pretty much quite a bit of difference between the color. Not a whole bunch of difference between the pattern, although the scaleless head seems like it really influences the pattern. And the kind of the interesting thing is if you actually buy a Lemonblast hatchling, it doesn't really change much from hatchling to adult, other than a lot of your hatchlings will have a little bit of orange in the sides and in the belly, and sometimes they'll lose that orange, but other than that, you pretty much get what you see when you're buying a hatchling Lemonblast. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.